There's that go. Got it. All right. We are live. We are live. I
Yes.
will
Hello.
I will join Grain in a second.
Okay, no
I
problem.
have to log
Hello.
into everything all over again.
Okay, no problem. Hello.
Also,
Hello, and welcome everyone. We are live again. Hopefully, we are live. If not, we will be in few minutes, seconds.
we are live. We are live. We
This
are live.
is okay. This is so good. Okay,
Yeah.
before that, hello. Now I assume that you are there, and hello everyone else who is going to watch later, recorded, or right now they are live. Yeah, you are welcome. You're welcome to join. You're welcome to ask. You're welcome to share your thoughts and opinions about things, and just share any story if you like to, because today is the day of stories. Yesterday, we read Syl read the story, which was really, really consuming, really just immersing, and I
Mm.
was so immersed into that. And today again, like the aftershocks of that story was, one of our dear friend came and shared another story, which becomes a like really a pressing thing to share with. They really urge because of the yesterday's story, and she shared about the story, that how the story is changing, and I shared my thing too. But before that, before Syl is going to go through and explore the whole story in depth
Both of
and
us,
do
not just me.
yes, and do the capital R reading of the story,
Mm.
I want to share something personal as usual. It is becoming like my habit to share my progress. I'm using it as my journal. I'm
I
using
love
it
it.
as my as
Love
my
it. Love it.
as my place to learn and grow, of course.
Yeah. Yeah.
Today
Yeah.
something happened,
Yeah.
and there were other people, two other parties were also involved into that, and it has nothing to do with me, but at least not now. In the past, yes, they were. I was also in that I was involved in activity, which was
Hang on,
something
1 second, one
so.
second, one moment, one moment. Start again where you said you were involved. It broke up there, so we didn't hear.
Okay, I'm saying that now one of the two person, they were still involved into that. There's some activity, some mutual project they were involved in, and
Ah,
they shared something. Before I was also part of that project, but later on I just get distracted and I was not part of that anymore. I am not, but they were still there. And something happened which was not so profound for them, and they also get apart, and some gestures were not kind of not up to the mark, or like, okay, really it was not mature way of doing things. That type of things happen,
they
you
were
know
on the
that how.
receiving end of this type of behavior. Yes.
Yes, yes, and you
Oh,
know that in professional world sometimes things happen, and you
yeah.
do expect some sort of maturity and professionalism to deal with unpleasant situation, which was not existing there. And then in reaction, and also in urge to understand that why these things happen, because it was completely uh, unexpected for them, that behavior. And when they try to understand those things, they sneak into to some personal information about that person.
Oh.
And they say, oh, yes, they are going through some problem. For me, it was right like person. It's unethical, it's unprofessional, it's not right. I was into the right and wrong mindset. And I said, no, it's not right. Shared
Oh.
with Syl because Syl was aware of the situation and aware of those people also, because I was part of it, of that project before. He says, Beena, but it is kind of appropriate because they were trying to understand those things, and that was like, what? It is no way. It was wrong. It is wrong, and whatever they did, no matter what happened, they must not actually uh, get access to, which they
Mm.
had access to their personal information and things. And but Syl says, but Beena, like, look, they were trying to find out what's the problem, and look what the positive came out, that they get a resolution, and they say, oh, that person is going through some issues. That's why he behave or they behave in a certain way. And and in the beginning of that conversation, I was totally biased. I was not in a receptive mood, and I was completely convinced by my own ideas and perspectives. My emotions were overriding my receptivity and my awareness because I was not feeling good about it. Because it was for me, I was taking it, I was involving it into personally, like, what if someone will do this to me? How I would be like this. And I'm like, no way, I'm not, because this is beyond my understanding. How can I do this? How can anyone do this? I was just taking it, I was getting completely immersed into that and becoming a party into that, which I was not. And
Yeah.
that's why my emotions were overriding my sensibility, my moreness, my receptivity, and my awareness and my understanding. And when Syl says, and he shared something, and I was like, come on, like, now we are going to sneak into other people's information.
No, no.
Which he was not saying, but this is how unreceptive I was,
Mm,
irreceptive I
mm,
was in this moment because my emotions were overriding everything. But I
yeah.
catch myself because, of course, with the help of Syl also. And because of the story, because just few days back, I
Mm,
was saying with Syl, I was sharing my understanding, and I said how profound it is to live like a book instead of just having bias and having like really emotionally influenced decisions and all these things and perspectives. Why not just live like a book? This is how I feel that at Nobelia people live. They
yeah.
just state facts without having any bias, even if it is about them. They just state the facts with maximum accuracy and preciseness.
Mm, mm,
But
mm,
though I was admiring that, but when it comes to something sensitive, my emotions just take over,
mm,
and they just muddle my understanding and my awareness in those moments.
yeah. Yeah.
I was completely, but the most dangerous thing that I was acting and I was reacting like I was involved into that, like someone was invading my privacy.
Yes. You made it
That
personal.
was
You made it
that was
personal.
the most
Yeah.
horrible thing in any
Yeah.
situation,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
because when we feel attacked, we get into defensive mood and we react, and
Yeah.
then we start behaving in a primitive mindset.
In distorted ways. Yeah. Yeah.
Exactly. That was the real horror, real danger for me.
Yeah. Yeah.
Thank God that I caught myself and I said, okay, no, I'm going to. With help, of course, it was not coming organically, completely from my side, but
Yeah.
it came via Syl and this story. And this is so huge. To have
Yes.
this ability to get out of, to have this understanding, or always connectivity, making and maintaining the connectivity with the bigger picture,
Yeah.
which
It
I
is. It
lost
is a
many
big
times in
deal.
my
It is a
self.
big deal.
Yes.
Yeah.
So another experience, another application, another awareness, another perspective shifting, another opportunity to say no to ego and get a
Yeah.
resolution.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's why I was keen to share with you guys. Now we are going to explore the story more in depth.
Yes. 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 We're getting there. We're getting there. I'm just
Yes.
was finishing all the pasting. It's a little slower because I had to redo some of my uh, passwords and stuff because I had to reboot the computer earlier. Hello, Beena. I mean, Norma. Hello, Norma. Hello, Norma. You here? You here? Ah, brilliant. You see, Beena? Norma's here.
No, no, I
Yeah.
was
Okay. Still trying to get the story up and slides. Do you have slides open? I think I accidentally closed it somehow. Yeah, I did. Dang it. All right. Will you pull it up, please, Beena?
Still, I cannot because I have to
Oh,
go. I do have
oh,
another Zoom meeting which is needed, very much needed. I need to do this.
Okay. No worries.
Yes, and
It's
I will
here
come back.
somewhere. Yeah.
I will
Yeah.
come back in few minutes. It will not be very long because I don't want
Okay.
to miss my capital R reading
Okay.
today.
Good. Good. Good.
But
Good.
I will go and I will come
Good.
back as
Good.
soon as
Good.
I can.
Ah,
Yes.
brilliant. Brilliant.
Yes.
Hello, Norma. Hello, Norma. Let me type it
Hi,
there too. Make sure you see it. Make sure you see it. Hello, Norma. Hello, Norma. All right. We're getting there, Norma. We're getting there. We're getting there. We're getting there. Just Beena's point that she's making. It's a very deep point. Very deep point about appropriateness, and she'd set a set of standards for herself, and she'd made them into an absolute. And when those standards were transgressed or not adhered to, it became automatically, because it's an absolute. She said, "No, this cannot be. This is wrong. This is not good. This is not right." Yeah. But when we understand a little deeper, and we understand that there's more, and that exceptional circumstances then make appropriate other exceptional circumstances, or not always, but frequently, right? This happens, and this is very important to understand, especially when somebody has crossed the line in some way. Right, or broken the pattern, and particularly when somebody has done something that's, well, let's go back to the story, and this particular story, right, with the angel in heaven, not the angel Illumina, the other angel, the one that had been wrongly accused. But in the beginning, the angel had done something untoward. Now, untoward for angels is quite a dramatic business, but not for us necessarily, right? We don't think of something untoward, if you take the word itself, as something that is a major issue. But of course, for angels it is, but in humans not so. Well, not in the superiority paradigm. On Nobelia, yes, it would be, but not in general life, right? People do untoward things all the time. In other words, untoward, if you were to get a little bit more technical on it, a bit more detailed here, what is the difference between untoward and a transgression? Yeah, or even worse than a transgression, like abuse or criminal or something like that. Untoward is when people are on that red line and they just push over it a little bit. They're still close to it. They're still connected to it. That line of ethics and sensibility and goodness and rightness, right? So it's like, well, but they find some way to justify it. It is nonsense. It's like when people we talk about BS, bullshit, right? And say, yeah, but it's just BS. To take bullshit and make it into bullshit, into BS, what are you doing? Yeah, I mean, bullshit is lying. It's deliberate deception. How is that cool? It's not, but because it comes in a way that that is, just exaggeration or whatever. It's seemingly okay, but it's not. So typically, at least in minor BS, it's untoward, but the intent behind it is still deception. Doesn't matter that it's in a small, insignificant thing. That doesn't matter. You BSing about your abilities or your past history or whatever. The deception matters. The thing you BSing about doesn't matter, right? So I'm making the point about untowardness. Untowardness is the very first stages of things, and when and they're not typically significant enough in themselves. The issue isn't significant. The thing itself isn't significant, but the intent and the action behind it, this is most significant, right? Because, like I said, And, BS, we say, all right, it's just BS, we write it off. It's deception. It's lying. It's deliberately trying to deceive. How is that not significant? Untowardness is likewise significant. Now, when somebody is acting and over the line of ethics and integrity, they've crossed over into that line. Yeah. Now it changes the rules of behavior. In other words, when a thief or a murderer comes into my house and they want to kill my children, do the normal rules of how I treat people apply to that murderer? Hell no. Yeah. In order to stop him, I can cut him in half and do whatever is necessary to stop him or her. Yes. I want to be sexist here. Murderers aren't always only men, right? or whatever the creature is. In other words, I can do things that I wouldn't otherwise do. Now, I might not want to get physical, but can I lie to that murderer? So, well, where are you going? What, to murder my children? Oh, they're not here. Sorry, you're out of luck. They're visiting their friends. Meanwhile, they're sleeping upstairs. Yes. If I can convince them that they're elsewhere, in other words, if I can lie effectively, my lying is appropriate. Absolutely and utterly, without question. Yes. Yeah. And my point is that exceptional behavior opens up appropriateness of other exceptional behavior. And once somebody's thrown away the rules, sorry, this doesn't apply to you. Like if you want to come and mug me of my money and it doesn't work out for you and you end up on the floor, maybe it's okay if I take your money, teach you a lesson. Just saying, not that I would necessarily do this, but I'm trying to find an example to say, hey, that's your rules you live by. When you come and do this to me, you cancel all rules. And now whatever comes as a consequence of your transgressive behavior, don't be complaining. Yeah, you threw out the rules. So don't complain when things don't go the way you think they're going to go, right? When you have this distortion, because you changed the rule book. And life is like that too. And in this instance, what happened is somebody did something. Now, it turns out their motivation, while not something that is okay, is understandable. The emotion was embarrassment. Because, life had taken a turn and they weren't in a good position and things weren't going the way they thought it would go, etc. Right? And so they didn't want to tell people they were involved with that, I'm in a bad spot. It's a bit embarrassing, blah, blah, blah. So then they behaved in ways that tried to solve the problem, but kind of wasn't cool. Yeah. And this is what I'm saying. So now this is the point of impeccability, because unimpeccability begets unimpeccability. Because they were unimpeccable, not wrong or bad, but just unimpeccable, it opened the door for somebody else to be unimpeccable. The end result was positive because they found out that the motivation wasn't that the person was just being a dreadful jerk and being, callous and disregarding and so on. No, there was actually a good reason for it. All right. Is it still unimpeccable? Absolutely, right? It's still not cool, but doesn't matter, right? Right. The reason is the decider. Yes, we want to look deeper. We want to look deeper. But the key point here is that I'm really, really making an effort to make is that appropriateness needs to always be contextual and also the motivation. Now, in this particular case, there's lots of nuance here. The action and the consequence of the action were positive, right? But the motivation for that action was not. The motivation that they did this action for didn't justify them doing it. But if they had done it for the motivation of the consequence, then it would have been okay, right? So there's very subtle nuance. Yeah. Very, very subtle nuance, right? It's quite profound. It's quite profound that how we need to really pay attention We nearly pay attention. We need to pay attention, in other words, to context and motivation when it comes to appropriateness. Yeah, this is very, very, very important, because why we do things absolutely matters. It matters critically, critically. And as I said, you know, like lying to a murderer about where my children are, a murderer who wants to come to murder my children specifically, this is okay. You know, this is totally appropriate. The reason makes sense, right? I can't allow murder just because, well, I can't lie. I've got to tell you where my children is. It's absurd, right? So we have to be careful about our standards and making them absolute. Now, that's a very, very obvious situation, right? Not all situations are that clear cut, but nonetheless, impeccability is what determines this. And when we understand about impeccability, we don't. This is not something we take lightly, of course, you know, and it's not casually done. And therefore, when we really start to pay attention to these our actions, our behaviors, and our motivations, we have that clarity of intent. We've been thorough. We've been thorough beyond thorough. We've not only been thorough, we've been diligent, we've been scrupulous, we've been conscientious. This is what determines our impeccability. Of course, those are associated with being honest, self-honest, and acting with integrity. It all works together. Yes. So in that type of a situation, when you've gone through this, you've checked, you've double checked, you've thought it through to the end, you've perspective shifted, you've made every effort you possibly can. By the time you come to your decision, regardless of what it is and your behavior that you're going to do, even if it is completely contrary to what you would normally do, your conscience is clear. Yeah, in the case of lying to the murderer, my conscience is completely and utterly clear. I'll never ever feel any doubt, any regret, any remorse, any recrimination, shame, guilt, none of that. Correct? Not one single iota. I'm not ever going to feel bad about lying to the murderer. Right? Right? It's very important. Now, in the murder case, obviously, this is it's a duh. It's a massive, great big duh. But what about things that aren't that clear cut? Is it still such a duh? Yeah, it needs to be. It needs to be clear cut. Now, the situation may not easy to be determined, but I have to make a decision. My decision needs to be clear and without doubt, without remorse. In other words, I've gone over and beyond, above to figure out what it is that I'm doing, why I'm doing it. And I have once I make my decision, because I've made every effort to make an appropriate decision and to make a decision that is being researched, that's thorough, there's diligence and scrupulousness and conscientiousness and thoroughness involved, integrity, honesty, goodness, everything involved. Once I make that decision, I go on my way, free and clear of doubts and worries, right? My conscience will never bother me. And it doesn't matter if it turns out to be the wrong decision or not. This is irrelevant. This is absolutely irrelevant. It doesn't matter, right? At the time, I worked according to what I knew, and I was impeccable according to what I had access to. And I made effort to access as much as I could, as whatever was available, right? Within the time and energy constraints. And this is the power of impeccability. Impeccability enables us to live without regret, regardless of whether our decisions turn out to be correct or not. And here's a great magic. Here's a great, great magic. Yeah. In this, that when we are impeccable and we make a decision and it turns out completely different to what we thought it would, the result I call fortuitous mistakes, those actions, all right? Because the result almost always turns out to be magical. We end up changing a direction, changing a path, jumping tracks, because the path we were on was heading in a no good direction. And we had no information that says get off the spot. Like it's like you're on a highway and the bridge is out up ahead, and it just went out right this minute. Let's say the bridge failed or whatever, right? And there's no time for warning signs or roadblocks or anything like this. So the road, you're not going to get any information that says don't keep driving on this road, and you're going to drive off the bridge because, well, maybe you go and see it or whatever. I mean, typically you will, but I'm just for argument's sake, right? Um, there's no warnings. There's no possibility of being warning signs because it's too early. It's too immediate. But from the universe's point of view, it knows, right? So it says, no, get off this road. And it forces you off the road for whatever reason. Or you get a flat wheel. And you say, oh, man, I'm going to be late for all my things. But man, so fortunate that I did get that flat wheel because to get it, and it delayed me, and then I could know, and all right, so then I didn't get into trouble because of what was coming. Right? So this is how life is with fortuitous mistakes. It changes our path because there are things in the path that we don't know, and that would be a trouble. Right? This is very, very, very powerful. This is very, very powerful. Yeah, yeah. It's amazing. It's amazing how potent and effective this is. It's really, really quickly. Yeah, yeah. An amazing thing. Very, very potent, very potent. This whole understanding of appropriateness and impeccability and how it all works together. It's not a simple thing. There's some complexity to it, but it's worth making the effort to understand that complexity, right? To understand the connection between appropriateness and impeccability. And when we understand this, first appropriateness, you need awareness, right? You need discernment, you need understanding in order to decide what is appropriate. And then you need to have the ability to act on that. If you don't act, it doesn't matter what you understand. And then like making a decision, that's an action, right? And when we come to that decision making now, that ability to act, we can't just act randomly. That's going to get us into trouble. We can't act crappily either. That's also going to get us into trouble. We can't act half-heartedly either. Also going to get you into trouble. In other words, if we act unimpeccably, it's going to get you into trouble. It's very simple. Therefore, act impeccably. Furthermore, there's a bonus to it in this, that when you are impeccable, it doesn't matter how things turn out. They're going to turn out good regardless. It doesn't matter. You have to have that ability, though. Like Beena was commenting now. This is the tie, the full circle coming around. You have to have that ability to be able to adapt when circumstances are exceptional. This was an exceptional circumstance. And I pointed out that maybe it is justified. Well, it depends on the motivation. Their motivation wasn't the right one, but had it been, it would have been justified. It would have been to break the normal rules of engagement and rules of working, the normal boundaries and ethics and so on, right? Because untoward behavior changes things. Exceptional behavior leads to exceptional consequences and counter exceptional behavior. All right, so appropriateness, very contextual, but that impeccability, and now you tie it all together, the motivation behind it, the reason, very, very key, very, very critical, right? Yeah, yeah. Very, very awesome. Very, very awesome. It's a very big deal. Very big deal. Very big deal. Yeah, 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 yeah. Really huge. Really huge. Really huge. Does that all make sense, Norma? Let me look a little closer here. Just trying to get everything organized. So I was not paying attention to the comments there. Yeah, yeah. A lot of stuff going on. Very busy day today. Yeah, not too much time lag. Not too much. But they're sensible enough. No worries, Norma. No, I love your comments regardless of the time lag. Yeah, I'm just multitasking like crazy over here. Monday's a very busy day. Very, very busy day. Yeah. One moment. Ah, brilliant. Where'd you go, Beena? Where'd you go? Norma, I'm keen to know. Does what my sharing about appropriateness and impeccability and how it all connects and living without regrets and decision making, etc. Does it all connect? Does it all make sense? Does it all fit? Norma? Yeah, makes sense? I'm keen to know, Norma. I'm keen to know. Keen to know. Very keen to know, Norma. Very keen to know. Before I start reading the story, let me know. Let me know. Keen to hear. Yeah. I mean, if not, I'm happy to go over it again because it's a very important topic. And it's what Beena was touching on, right? About this appropriateness and appropriateness shifting according to a change in the underlying circumstances, the underlying sensibility. I'm keen to know if my sharing about appropriateness and about impeccability and decision making, living without regrets, change of circumstances, making things different that otherwise would not be okay, making them okay. Yeah. If it all made sense. Right? And you pardoned. I don't know if I have any power to grant pardons, but should I have, I'm happy to pardon you for whatever and anything at all. Yeah. 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 Very happy to. Very happy to, Norma. If I had such power. All right. Well, let me know. Let me know on what I shared if it makes sense to you. Yeah. Oh, you do. All right. Yeah. Not that you agree. See, I'm not really looking for agree or disagree. I'm looking for understanding. Because it may make sense what I say, but you might still not agree. Like, for instance, I can explain to you why I don't like to eat a certain food because, well, it tastes like poison to me. You can understand, but you won't necessarily agree that it tastes like poison because it doesn't taste like poison to you. See? But you can understand why I don't eat it because it tastes like poison to me. Or yeah. So this is why I prefer understanding to agree or disagree because things are different for different individuals. But that doesn't mean that we can't understand somebody else's situation in their case. And also understanding when we get to understanding, that's a whole different point to agree. Yeah, yeah. I know it means that, Norma. I'm just teasing you a little bit. You're saying excuse me, in other words. You don't really want to be excused, but you're just saying please repeat. Yeah, say again. Yeah. I understand. I was just having fun with it. I was just having fun with it because it's not often one sees that being used anymore. It's a older usage. Yeah, it's fallen out of favor slightly. Yeah. All right, let's go to the origin story. I don't have much time. I have to kind of hurry today. Not hurry, but a lot of things happening, so I have to be a little cautious of time. Cautious of time. All right, it's screen share, and then we'll go over some of it. Yeah, yeah, yeah. We're going to go over the takeaways, which is great. And the opening quote. One may wonder wherein lies the value of restating what has already been said. It's valuable because what has been said is valuable. The restatement and repetition is a way and a means to lock in that value, to let it come in from as many angles as possible, to let it come in from as many angles as possible. Yeah. And that's really why I like understanding. Yes, 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 Norma. Yes. Short for, I beg your pardon. Yes. Oh, please excuse me. That's the polite way of saying it, or the super polite way, the over polite way. All right. But this understanding, when we just say agree, we typically just take it in and say, yeah, that sounds good to me. I agree. But when we get into understanding, right? If I say I understand, and if I have a deep integrity and a deep honesty, I say, well, how do I know I understand? I have to check it, which means I have to do a repeat back. Yeah, and that's why understanding is so powerful. When I do a repeat back to check my understanding so that I don't believe I understand, but I know I understand. I understand at least what somebody else means, right? Because when I give them a repeat back, they can confirm, yes, that's what I meant to say, right? Meant, not said. What we say and what we mean is very different sometimes. And a repeat back helps to get to that understanding of what was meant, not said. So when we focus on understanding, especially capital U understanding, more comes into it. And the moment I start feeding it back, they say, wow, yes, that is kind of what I meant at the time. But now that you say this, there's more. Or it makes me think, I realize, oh, I kind of missed some stuff. So, well, let me take that back and restate it. So this understanding becomes a dynamic, collaborative process leading to more, typically. It's incredibly powerful. It's incredibly powerful. Understanding rather than agreement or disagreement. Agreement or disagreement are also somewhat pandering to our egos. Yes, we assume others want to be agreed with. No, I don't care whether somebody agrees or disagrees. It is of no consequence to me, but understanding this is valuable. It's not necessarily of consequence, but I feel this is where the value lies. If you agree with me, so what? I already knew what I said, and you agreeing with me, what difference does that make? None whatsoever. I haven't learned anything. It hasn't added to me. You know, if I had an ego, it would make my ego feel good. Yes. So agree doesn't really make a difference, right? It just, all right, it's a nice thing to say, but it doesn't really make a difference. Understanding, though, this does make a difference, because in order to understand, we have to make some effort involved. We have to really think about it, and we have to share that, because otherwise, how do you know that your understanding is accurate? So you have to give some feedback. You have to give something back to demonstrate that you are understanding, right? That's the repeat back, in other words. It's very powerful. Understanding is huge. And disagreeing is quite valuable too. But if we disagree, then we just say, oh, I disagree, and that's kind of the end of it. Now, by implication, we need to have an argument. That's the old paradigm. That's absolutely not true. You can share, say, well, the way I understand it is like this, which is a little different. All right, cool. Now I want to hear how you understand it. It typically is just a communication issue, but now we discuss our various understandings and we start collaborating and say, wow, okay, I understand how you understand it. And you say, oh, yeah, I understand how you understand it. This is incredible. Did I hear a voice? I thought I heard something. Wow. Well, I guess not. It sounded like somebody outside. I'm talking to you, Norma. It's just you and me here. I'm talking to the universe, really. All these lives are always to the universe. That's the main connectivity. Whether I'm alone or with Beena, or with anybody, it doesn't matter. I'm speaking in general, in the overall. I keep hearing a voice. One moment. One moment. What am I hearing? Hello? Anyone for me? Nope. Guess not. You know, I am expecting people to come by. It would be a bit early if they came now already. Yeah. No, I'm commenting to you specifically here now, Norma, because you said agree. So I'm just utilizing it as a leverage to bring up this point about agreement and understanding. I've said this many times before. Yeah, yeah. Thought you circulated them. I do, but yeah, but I still, you know, it's general, you know. I don't do these lives for people. No. In other words, and I've said this many times before, Norma, my motivations are not the usual motivations. If nobody watched this, not a single person, I would still do them. Right? I get value out of the doing. Tons of it. I've gone over many, many, many times why. But every single reason that I have for doing it is not a conventional reason. I don't do it because people are watching or to get likes or anything like that. None whatsoever. So it matters not who listens or not. That doesn't mean I don't enjoy if they do, especially if they give comments and feedbacks. Well, I don't enjoy if they watch because it doesn't make any difference to me. But if they give feedback, I love it, like you. Right? Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, right. That's what I was saying, though. I'd rather you said you understand than you agree. Yes? This agreement, it doesn't really do much, but understanding, now we're getting somewhere. Then especially if your understanding is based on giving some kind of feedback to check your understanding, now we get into magic territory. Now it's very, very powerful. Very, very powerful. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, I do. I share all of the lives. I share them on YouTube as well. Yeah. So there is a moreness there. There is a moreness there. All right, let's read a little bit here of the story. This is now to catch up on the story for those who haven't been here, maybe. And just in case, hello, Tasaba, in case you're here. Maybe Tasaba, is he working yet already? I think he works in the afternoon, so maybe not. Anyway, if you're here, hello, Tasaba. In the story, Biella has told the main story of the origin story. And as is their habit, see, this is what I was saying about understanding. Now they come the takeaways. And this is what I pulled out of it. This is what I took as the meaning. This is what is valuable for me. Whether or not I understood the original story doesn't matter. The takeaways are about what's valuable. A repeat back is to check your understanding. But sometimes we can get value whether we understand the original or not. And especially when it's a myth or an origin story, it's totally irrelevant what I understand it to mean. What matters is the value that I take away from it, that I'm going to put inside me, that I'm going to live by, that I'm going to use, that I'm going to apply. And these are the takeaways that are coming. And they're very unusual takeaways. And later we see more interesting takeaways. But I shared them here because they are unusual and it demonstrates the range of takeaways, right? So the takeaways here are both by unusual characters and unusual in the sense, right? That they bring more. They bring more. And this is very powerful. All right. Here we go. We'll read a bit and then as things come, we'll discuss them. Oh, I love it. I love it, Norma. I love it. I love it. I love it. At some point, I'd like to know, your understanding. I'd like you to share it with me in detail. Because when we do that, so much more comes from that. It's an incredible process. All right. In this way, the same with these takeaways. A number of the new nobles stood up. What's happening? One of the delegates asked. They are presenting themselves for participation in the takeaway, is my guess. Ursula said. She looked to her Mumt and Marco for confirmation. Yes, said Marco. This is a large group, so they will wait for the lead, Biella in this case, to select those to share their takeaway. On that point there, right? Somebody has to be the lead. They don't have leaders on Nobelia. Because the concept is just preposterous. It's as appropriate, right? One day it's okay. Well, or it's my idea. Okay, well, you've got the energy for it. Well, fine, you take the lead. Or I'll say, hey, you know what? I need to, like, let's say, for instance, well, it's a good example. Doing these lives, yes, it's me, it's my Zoom, and it's my story, all this, but I do it with Beena. And Beena often takes the lead. And because I need to be doing stuff like sharing and all that, it's very appropriate that Beena takes the lead. We didn't decide, oh, you're going to do that. No, it just happens as appropriate, right? It's just there. It's just the same thing here. Now, because she's the main storyteller, it goes because she's got the rhythm and the flow, and she's in that mode, the modality. So there's a good logic to her being the lead. Not the leader, but the lead. And therefore, when the takeaways come up, she selects it. Now, why and on what criteria does she use? Pure attunement. There'll be no rhyme or reason. It's whatever grabs, whatever's appropriate, right? And in this case, since Illumina stood up, how can she not choose Illumina first? Yes. It's like, the story has Illumina in it, and there's this real life Illumina that has some similarities, also many differences, but this is as appropriate, right? And we hear from this Illumina, who, like the angel Illumina, is a character that struggles. That even though they struggle with stuff, life is not easy in terms of their understanding, right? They have a lot of conflicting intents, which make their life difficult, right? That striving, that desire for more and deepness makes for complication, right? Very powerful, very powerful. So it's very useful, that camp. But I'm making the point about Biella's selection. And then, of course, the next time, who knows? Maybe she chose AB because AB had a deep earnestness to her, which she could really see easily. Or it may have been random. It's like, okay, we had petite and another petite. Who knows? It doesn't matter. Right? We don't know what those criteria, but it doesn't really matter, right? The universe will decide it. Right. So they will wait for the lead. Biella, in this case, to select those to share their takeaway. Usually in the smaller groups, it just happens naturally, with the one who has the most pressure going first. And if you know this, if you've ever been in in group sharing situations, like, all right, well, most people know it from something like group therapy or some situation like that, right? Or just at a party, right? You at a dinner party, it's anything like that. Somebody says something, and you don't pick somebody to share. You don't say, oh, you don't put your hand up. You just kind of share. And usually the one who has a lot of pressure to share, it just pops out. It just comes, right? And then you automatically go there. Or if like two people start speaking at the same token, then, at least if there's some sobriety and a bit of moreness involved, they look at each other and you can see who's got an urgency. And the one with the urgency is, please let me go. It's urgent, right? It's pressure. It's important. It matters. And I will say, okay, it's not that key to me. Go ahead, right? So this is a good way to say. Now, sometimes those pressures may be even, and then, randomness will decide. But it's a good mechanism to decide. Because when you have such intensity, you're going to be sharing more, typically, lots more. And in that moreness, the other person's sharing is likely going to be taken care of. Yeah, because you're going to cover the whole range. So now you're saying what they would have said anyway, and you're saying more than that also, right? So the higher pressure, the higher earnestness tends to be the one to go with. Why? Because they typically are going to be sharing more. That takes care of the other one. So you don't end up having unnecessary redundancy, or you don't end up with somebody sharing a little bit and then somebody else has got to add to that. And it's always difficult to do that because now it's tricky to isolate those points from your own sharing. So it's a great sensibility underlying this choice, selecting pressure, right? Earnestness, intensity. Right. That also makes a difference to what comes next. The takeaway of one usually affects those who follow. Yeah. and many will feel the internal pressure to speak resolved by someone else's takeaway. It's a marvelous process. We get to see that in action now. Marco tried to temper his eagerness, but it emerged despite himself. Yes, this is stuff that the aspirants, this is what they love. This is a big deal. This is a huge deal. It's very important to them. A petite new noble made her way to Biella. Biella beamed with such intensity. She shone like one of the angels in the story. It was her dear, dear friend Illumina, whom she had known for a very long time. Biella rose again to explain. For those of you that don't know, this is Illumina. A surprise. Biella says it in that way to get a little bit of dramatic effect, right? Leveraging attention through this emphasis now. It's like, whoa, whoa, wow, really? So you're paying attention, right? So she knows this. She understands this. She's an opportunist and she utilizes it. It's very magical what she does. A surprised murmur emerged from the delegates. Almost everyone else knew Illumina or of her. Illumina is a marvel, for she was named Illumina completely independently of the origin story. But it doesn't end there. Illumina squirmed a bit, anticipating what was to come. But she set herself stoically, recognizing the necessity for it. Sobriety in play for Illumina, obviously. And same likewise with Biella. She has to do this. It's appropriate. It's necessary. And therefore good. And therefore they enjoy it. They understand it. Biella continued. The marvel of it is that Illumina is every bit the representation and manifestation of Illumina in the story. She was so long before knowing the story. And yes, Illumina, it's most appropriate you start the takeaway. Biella beamed radiant love at her. Marco added, Illumina's original name was Elan Illumina, with Elan being the family name, put first, as is the custom on her birth world. That would now make her Noble Illumina back there. He grinned in the semi-dark at the appropriateness of it. Yeah. Yeah. Illumina took a moment, shifting far away, going over the story inside. Tears glistened in her eyes. She'd been visibly moved by the origin story. Beautiful was all she managed. After a few moments, she added, here is my takeaway. All right, I'm actually going to stop there just because I got tons of time pressure today. And so I want to go into detail tomorrow on Illumina's takeaway because she starts here. And there's a lot to this. So I'm going to stop there for today. I like hearing your takeaways also, Norma. I like hearing you share what's valuable to you, what matters to you, what's important to you. It's a very, very big deal. Very big deal. All right. On that note, I shall see you tomorrow. All right. Anything before I go, Norma? Just in case. Norma? Where are you? Anything to add before I go? No? All right. All right. Bye-bye, Norma. Bye-bye, Norma. Bye-bye, Norma. I shall see you tomorrow. Always pleased that you're here, Norma. Always pleased. All right. On that note, I shall end the meeting. End meeting.